All right. I am Ben Burgess. This is Give Them an Argument. I'm joined as always. Wait, where's Jake?
I thought he was here.
Shit. Okay. No. Yeah. No, this is a Thursday, so neither of those people would usually be here, but this time we're joined by Andy. How are you doing?
Hey, not too bad. Not too bad. I was just relaxing. Saw Dune this week, and all of a sudden now I'm here.
Yeah, fair enough. I honestly, I have there's a maintenance issue at the apartment I was dealing with for a lot of the day, and then I spent like 3 hours writing an article for Jacobin about that PragerU video about capitalism. So I probably went on for way too long. It'll be interesting to see, what it looks like once the suits at Jacobin get done cutting it up. By the suits, I mean Megan. She's the one editing it, but yeah, no, it's it really is like, yeah, it actually, I've seen that video now more times than anybody should watch it, and it actually like started to really piss me off like around the the third or fourth time, as I was like getting everything right so I could represent it accurately in the article.
I can't imagine sitting there watching that one over and over again. That just sounds like hell.
Yeah, fair. Well, we are going to watch something that's a bit more fun. We were looking for something that would be one, a little shorter for tonight, and two, as far as the topic goes, after the last few days, we were kind of thinking it might be nice to take a genocide break. So do a nice non-genocide topic for tonight, and so looking for short non-genocide debates to break down. We found this one from a little while back of Sam Seder debating a caller on the Majority Report who had apparently, before the conversation, referred to him as a fucking idiot for something he said about Social Security. And this is they're going back and they're going back and forth on it, and this has actually gotten a lot more timely in a sense. I mean, this is still within the realm of media discourse stuff to a point, although Donald Trump also got in on it. But there has been some privatizing Social Security, or hell, why should people be allowed to retire anyway? Chatter from the right in the last week.
I saw Ben Shapiro's take on that, and it was just terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro said that retirement is like a stupid idea anyway, which is,
But also Joe Biden should be retired.
Yes. Yeah. He was definitely trying to work both ends of the street on that one. He said there was a 100% overlap between people who were mad at him for saying that retirement was a stupid idea and people who think that Joe Biden isn't too old to be president, which is like, man, the world is full of people who think that your Social Security take was ghoulish and also think that Joe Biden is way too old to be president, right? Like that is a very, very common combination of positions, right? I think that, I think that if somebody is, like a nice grandfatherly old gent who, sometimes forgets when he was vice president and whatnot, I think that, I think people like him shouldn't have to eat cat food in their retirement. They should be able to have a dignified retirement, but also they shouldn't have nuclear launch codes. That seems like a fair combination of positions.
And they should have a dog that bites Secret Service agents.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I still haven't heard Major's side of the story. That might be okay. But yeah. I don't know what they did to provoke it is all I'm saying.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really bad. And Donald Trump, I think within the last week, was on CNBC and and he seemed to be willing to float. He seemed to be floating Social Security cuts in that conversation. There was a lot of spin right afterwards that when he said cut, he really only meant cut waste, fraud, and abuse. But, but also, I think given the recent history of Republicans on this topic and the fact that, as president, he didn't go after Social Security during that round, but, he certainly went after Medicaid. He certainly went after, bridge card benefits. So, I don't really think that he's earned a lot of, benefit of the doubt on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he also went after EBT, if I remember correctly, as well, which, just hurting everybody.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. What can you even say about Ben Shapiro? It's like, I mean, look, as somebody who is like Ben Shapiro in the having opinions about stuff business.
With the name Ben.
Yes, with the name Ben, right? Well, like, really, we're almost the same person. But yes, as a fellow Ben and they having opinions about stuff business, I would maybe urge my fellow Ben to think a little bit harder about how having opinions for a living might be different than, say, working in a warehouse or working in a meat packing plant, and the ways in which continuing to have opinions about stuff in public into your 70s or 80s might be one thing, but doing one of those other jobs into your 70s and 80s and having to do that to keep a roof over your head and not eat cat food and so on, seems much worse to me.
It does kind of reveal a bit of his bias, like how he thinks about how work for people, just from his own personal experience, because we kind of think about maybe not necessarily with our own personal experience. I mean, like my hero worked until he died, Will Eisner, worked up until his death, but not everybody wants to have a career like that, because he loved every minute of making graphic novels till he was 87.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
But that's, I don't want somebody, a Walmart reader, falling apart because they're dying, standing there because they have to work because they can't afford, cat food anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is, yes, most jobs are not, in fact, like being a pundit or a graphic novelist. And also, look, I mean, even if you do draw graphic novels, I want you to at least have the option, right, of stopping one day.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, which is, Jack Kirby never retired because he needed health insurance for his wife, and he worked until his death as well.
Yeah. So I also see, from the chat, from Skellumph, Mehdi Hassan recently ran circles around Pierre Bruce Morgan on Gaza, in case you're looking for more breakdown material. I did think about that, but as I said, genocide break. We'll be back on that soon enough, but gotta vary it up a little bit. So,
yeah, I thought I was going to get a break with Dune 2, and no, I didn't.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's get going.
Yes.
Somebody on Twitter basically said I was, I think, full of shit about Social Security, and there's no faster way than to me to invite somebody on to the show to call in. I think this is them. 916 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Iman from the Table Bonus podcast, and yes, I did say you were full of shit.
Okay, so it is that guy. All right.
Yeah.
Do we have your tweet? Do we have that clip? We'll play the clip so that we can start this. But I invited you to call in to discuss this. Do you have it? It should be on my. I responded to him at one point. I don't know when it was. Sometime the other day.
I was really surprised, actually. Really, really surprised that you did.
Just to give you credit. Oh, well,
Like,
thank you. I appreciate that. It's the quickest way to wind your way into my heart is to criticize me, and then to do it about Social Security. That's like, honestly, that's like catnip. All right, here it is. Here is the tweet that caused me to invite you to call in and have this conversation.
Sam Seder and Patrick Bet-David debate about private enterprise versus government, and Sam makes the case that Social Security eliminated the risk of poverty for our senior citizens. What this fucking idiot is missing. Do you know what the average life expectancy was when Social Security was first enacted? 65 years old. That's right, motherfuckers. This thing was never designed to serve as many people as it does because the government stupidly did not expect the life expectancy of their own citizens to increase by 20 years. That's why this thing won't work. On top of that, it doesn't account for the population decline who are paying into the system that's serving more people who are retired than enough people who are working to pay for it. On top of that, Sam Seder compares 401ks versus Social Security, conveniently forgets to mention that people who are paying into their 401k are also paying for Social Security. That's 6.2% coming out of your paycheck. It's like investing for your future with a hand tied behind your back. And he calls this a success. Sam Seder and
Okay, so there it is. So
initial thought about this, he says, Sam argued that this helped keep senior citizens out of poverty. But since then, senior citizens have lived a lot longer. I just kind of like to pause to note that these two thoughts came in very quick succession, and it might be worth, lingering on the possibility that one of these contributed to the other.
I would think so. I mean, it's nice not having to work till you die, which I believe was what was happening before we had Social Security.
Oh, what's your name?
Yeah, I sound great.
You sound great.
My name is Simon.
Simon?
Yeah.
Simon?
Hyman. A-Y. Hyman.
Oh, Hyman. Okay. So Hyman, let's go through this one by one.
Yeah.
You say I said it eliminated the risk of poverty. No, I think what I said was at the time it got 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. And I think right now you'll find that like somewhere around 30, I think the numbers are 30% of people would be in poverty. Never mind, living close to poverty. The rest would be very, well, not the rest, but a huge another cohort would be very close. But at least 30% would be living in poverty were it not for Social Security. Do you have a problem with that fact, or you just don't think it's important?
No one has a problem with people not living in poverty, which I think is the argument that usually is used against Republicans, like they're heartless or whatever. The fact is, this program was never designed to operate into the future this way.
Well, wait. Let's just we're going to get to there because I got the average life expectancy and et cetera, and population decline and but I just in terms of like you brought up that you said it, I said it eliminates the risk of poverty. Doesn't eliminate it, but it does actually eliminate the risk of poverty for all but 9%. It eliminates the risk of poverty. But it directly keeps at least 30% out of poverty. You accept that fact, correct or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
totally.
You don't have an issue with that.
Nobody has an issue with that.
Okay. So we can agree that at the very least, it keeps 30% of elderly out of poverty. It's about another 30% that it keeps just living above, poverty. And I think you would also agree, in addition, that diminishes pressure on people's kids to worry about their parents and helps them in terms of their wealth or wealth, essentially. I mean, so Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move to average life expectancy. Now, you say the government didn't realize that life expectancy would grow, even though, I mean, that I don't know why you make that assumption. They had actuarial tables at the time. They knew that life expectancy had grown from 1900 to 1940. What's the point about let's go with life expectancy?
Okay, So at the time, it's easy to pass legislation like this when you don't factor in what's going to happen over time. And you can say they have actuarial tables, but we know how congressmen and senators are. They're not factoring that in. It's about the near future instead of the long-term future. And so that's why we have the problem now. It's because the math isn't going to work out for the way the population is.
What is the problem? What is the problem now?
There aren't enough workers, and there are way more people retired than this program can support. And we know this. The calculations are very clear.
Okay.
It's just a math problem.
Okay. It's a math problem. All right. Well, first off, let's just start with like, what's the problem? In other words, like you're saying that we have a problem because the worker to retiree ratio, and we'll get to that. But what is the problem that you're saying? Like, what is, like, when you say there's a problem, I get that you're talking about worker to employee ratio, and we can discuss that. It certainly has changed. What is the problem, though? Does that make Social Security bad, or are you trying to argue that it's not sustainable?
I'm not saying it's bad. It's not sustainable.
Okay.
That's the argument I'm making. And giving people the false sense that this is something that they can rely on into the future is going to set people up for failure.
Okay.
And I think it's important to tell people now that anyone under 40
are you aware of
shouldn't expect it the same way.
Okay, what should they expect? If I'm under 40 and the US government does nothing, what should they expect in terms of benefits?
They have to start planning now.
No.
And also, I
know they have to start planning now. What should they expect in terms of benefits from Social Security?
I think to be safe, they should expect to not have the same sort of Social Security benefits that their parents.
What do you mean by same sort of? We know exactly what the number is. I mean, surely if you're wait.
We know it's actually going to go into debt.
Amen. You're on Twitter saying, what was the first part of that? I'm a fucking idiot because I don't understand about Social Security. Now you tell me.
You're giving people the false impression. No.
You tell us the true impression. You tell us the true impression. How much, if I'm 40 today and the U.S. government does nothing to reform Social Security taxes, let's say, or cut, they do nothing. How much can I expect? And at what age can I expect it? You're the genius on this. You tell me. It
depends on the age that they are and how much they're saving.
They're 40 years old. 40 years old. They're going for Social Security. How much of their benefits can they expect when they retire? And at what age is full retirement for a 40-year-old today?
To be safe.
No, don't say be safe. Just tell me if they do nothing.
We're making predictions about the future, dude. We're making predictions about the future. I'm telling you, the math says it will become insolvent. It will become insolvent.
You're saying that Social Security will be insolvent. They will get zero benefits if they retire.
There is a possibility of that.
There is a possibility of that?
Possibility of that.
Are you including that possibility that a massive meteor hits the planet and we all die? Or have you not even looked at the Social Security report that will tell you the math is
the government could always print more money. The government could always print more money.
No.
That's what
they don't have to.
You're asking me to predict what the government's going to do.
No.
You're saying doing exactly nothing. No. They will become insolvent.
You know what you're doing, Eamon? You're showing everybody that you haven't even read the Social Security report.
I did.
Really? Then tell me what they say benefits will be if I'm 40.
I'm not going to read it verbatim for you, dude.
Oh, there's one number that is important, 80%. If the government does nothing, a 40-year-old who retires at full retirement will get 80% of benefits. If we do nothing. Now, you don't understand what I'm saying because you don't know what you're talking about. Now tell me what age does a 40-year-old
can actually work?
Age?
Yeah, this is really painful to watch, right? You know, because if because this is not even like the thing that's often frustrating to watch people do live, where they just like disagree about what the underlying facts are. And so like one person says it's one thing and the other person says it's the other thing. And it's really hard for you to judge that like while you're actually watching. Like, you know, you could maybe like stop and spend an evening looking into it or whatever, but like who knows? Or in the version where everybody's like sitting on their laptops while they're doing it, you get people like Googling things and then just like reading out loud to the audience, you know, whatever shows up in like the first 5 seconds of Googling. And oftentimes they don't understand that. And that's like very frustrating in one way, right? But honestly, that is like the level of political discourse that's like, you know, I don't know, the Socrates arguing with Protagoras in the Forum, you know, compared to Agora, right? You know, compared to like what we're seeing here from Eamon, right? You know, because it's not that like he thinks it's, you know, only 50% or whatever of, you know, it's that he's so mad about this and he's so committed to this sort of general abstract narrative that, oh, you're lying to people by telling them that Social Security is solvent, that like he literally, it's not even that he has an alternative fact in his head. Like he literally doesn't understand what the question is.
Yeah, I was appreciating it a little bit better earlier whenever you had just the straight up video that they played of his tweet, where it was assembled like the in sneakers whenever they were trying to break into the voice passport, and the at the end of the movie, like they assembled like this guy's words and it all didn't quite match up. I appreciated that. It gave me good flashbacks thinking about a good film. So. But then after that it was just like downhill, just because this person just doesn't quite understand, you know, like what he thinks he's understands about what he's trying to argue. And it's like, okay, it's not insolvent. I mean, it's like kind of overblowing it, but like, you know, it's you know, you're going to get most of your benefits, right? That's what Sam's trying to make clear. Just so they can get the basic facts, you know, for the discussion.
Yeah, exactly. That like if that, you know, I mean, I think Sam's very simple point here, I mean, he's obviously right about this, is that you know, if nothing happens, right, that there's no raising the cap, there's no changing how the system is funded, there's like everything continues exactly the same way it will, given, you know, how many people are alive now and how many people we expect to be alive, you know, like 27 years, I guess, right? 67 at this point for full benefits. Then as a 40-year-old now, what that would mean is that you get 80% of projected benefits rather than full projected benefits. And by the way, we say projected benefits, that doesn't mean you're getting like 80% of like what your dad was getting at the same age. It actually does go up over time, right? It's supposed to, right? You know, but yeah, 80% of what you'd otherwise be supposed to do, right? You know, so it's this idea that it's like, oh, it's going to go insolvent is just, you know, not true, which is like the one very, very simple point he's trying to make right now. And that I hope like eventually either Eamon acknowledges that, or else they just kind of move on, right? Because the sort of further point that's important here is that, you know, Matt Brunick has some really good stuff about this at the People's Policy Project, and what he points out is basically that, you know, right now, even beyond the sort of most obvious point, which actually is sufficient in itself, which is that like right now, you know, Social Security, like, you know, many other kinds of taxes, Social Security taxes go up as your income goes up, except, right, that there's this artificial cap, right, for that process. And, you know, you lift that and all your problems go away. But like, even ignoring that, when people say, oh, it's going to go insolvent, what they're actually trying to say is, it's not like, I think the smarter ones at least, is not literally zero benefits will be paid out, but that, that it'll be, that'll be less being paid out than it's supposed to. Fair enough. But then when they say, oh, we need to cut Social Security so it doesn't go insolvent, or we need to raise the age, which is just a different way of saying cutting, because the way Social Security works, it's like you have when you're talking about raising the age at which you can get full benefits, right? Really what you're just talking about is cutting benefits for people who are below that age, right? So like what you're ultimately talking about when you say, oh, we need to raise the retirement age for Social Security in order to prevent it from becoming insolvent. What you're actually saying is we need to cut Social Security so it doesn't get cut. Like it's sort of incoherent, right? You're saying like the thing that you're intending to head off is the cut to projected benefits. And you're saying we need to, head that off by changing the promised benefit, right? You're just accepting the cut, right? And I think as, one of the Brunig essays about this, he points out that, it's the way the law is written currently. And this is what people are really saying, when the system, when there's a mismatch, the system is taking in less money than it's supposed to be paying out, that triggers an automatic cut. But look, that's just a political decision. There's no reason it has to do that. You could rewrite the law so instead of, less input than projected output, triggering an automatic cut, it just triggered an automatic tax increase, right? Like this, or as he says, you could even get real cute with it and say like it triggers an automatic tax increase over a certain income bracket.
Yeah, make it progressive. There's plenty of things you can do, and I remember like Congress actually makes more money than the cut. I was writing a comic and I was saying that Ron Paul, because he was still in Congress at the time I was making this comic, but I was writing like a treatise below it and saying like Ron Paul isn't paying his fair share into Social Security. Why is he complaining about it going insolvent? What's going on here? Like maybe he should just start paying his fair share.
Yeah, at the very least, do his part, right? It's like the Starship Troopers. I'm doing my part. Right?
Ron Paul's not doing his.
Yeah, exactly. And two other points about this before we get restarted. One, like hearing this exact rhetoric about anybody who's under 40 now, right? You're not going to see any of that money. And like the sort of in this very rule, very clued in kind of way, right? It's like, I know the score. I know that we're not getting any Social Security money is really funny to me because, I'm already old enough that I've been hearing people say, I think those exact same words since like Clinton was in office, right? Like these are very, very old talking points. Yeah. And, if they're not attached to specific numbers, that alone should make you very skeptical.
Yeah, I was not as clued in to the Clinton administration for this stuff, but definitely I heard it during the Bush administration.
Yeah, when he actually did try to privatize Social Security. No, for sure. I mean, or I don't know. Yeah, I can remember like TV shows from like 20 years ago, having characters, say it's like, oh, I'm never going to get that anyway, right? It's this sort of way of being nihilistic, that's so yeah. The other, and yes, it's also to Skellum's point, says, as the owner of a math degree, I can confidently say that never once when someone says it's just math does a coherent argument follow. Yeah. Yes, right. I remember many years ago, there used to be this show on ESPN called Numbers Never Lie. And you remember this?
I remember it because The Onion used to do a great parody of it, which I used to watch the parody.
Yeah. So it's, it was kind of a pleasant show to watch. The two hosts, right? The man and the woman who hosted that, they had like good patter and all that stuff. But the central premise of the show drove me nuts every time I watched it because what the format was they'd bring up some like sports debate, right? Some question that they could go back and forth on. And they would go back and forth, they do their thing for, for a few minutes. And then they'd be like, oh, well, numbers never lie. What do the numbers say? And they just like arbitrarily trot out some stat that they would treat as like settling the issue with no real explanation of why or how it settled the issue. It's like, or whether other stats might also be relevant, or, like this is, and it's just that kind of, that's always kind of stuck in my head, is like, it's the way that, if all you really want is like the aura of numbers, but you don't want to think very hard about them. Like when my high school classmate Nate Silver, when during the 2016 election, he was very fond of this point. Right, there was a point when 538 had a contract with the New York Times, and the contract. And it's really funny too, because like Nate's book was called The Signal and the Noise. It was all about getting people to pay attention, like trends and polls over time, and not like hyper focus on individual polls and stuff like that, which, as far as it goes, is a good point. There's some bad political stuff in that book about the housing crisis, and there's some, a very fawning interview with Colin Powell. So I don't love any of that, right? But like that like central point was fine. But it was also really funny that when they had this contract with the New York Times, the contract required them to put out so much content that, let's put it this way, it was getting very noisy and unsignally, right? Like it got to the point where after every primary, they were putting out, like they were just publishing in the New York Times the unedited chat transcripts of the 538 editors, like talking about what it had, like the primary results. It's like, okay. And in those, there was this point that Nate was super fond of, that like, I remember him saying a bunch of times in those. It drove me crazy every time I saw it. It was like, well, actually, people think there's this big important difference between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, but when they were both in the Senate, they voted together. I don't even remember what the number was. Let's say 90% of the time. And he would just treat this as like, oh, see, here's this number that I can hang my hat on. And I was like, well, hold on, though. They were only in the Senate together for a couple of years. For most of that time, Hillary was running for president, so she didn't even show up for very many votes. And generally, presidential candidates are most likely to show up to votes that are most important to their base, which is what's going to skew the voting record that year as compared to any other year. That's why, like, there's this thing that Republicans always love to do where they say whoever's the Democratic nominee that year, if they're a senator, that they have the most liberal voting record in the Senate, because they're always looking at the last year. It's like, yeah, they only showed up for like 6 votes and they were all really important to the Democratic base. So that's going to look like a super liberal, people are like, oh, John Kerry is the most liberal voting record in the Senate. And then, so that's one thing. And then like, also are all votes created equal? Like, if we cast the net a little wider, then those couple of years they're both in the Senate, and look at when, the much longer period when Hillary was in the Senate and Bernie was in the House. I don't know what the percentage was then, but like, she voted for the Iraq War and he voted against it. Does that maybe like count for like more than a couple of like procedural votes where, every Democrat in the Senate is going to vote the same way?
Yeah, I think that number was like close to like 80% or something like that. I mean, like there was a big difference between the two, but yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. But even that 80% is incredibly misleading, because you're counting like
exactly.
You're counting all kinds of trivial bullshit exactly as much as you're counting like the Patriot Act or like reauthorizing funds for the war in Iraq, like every year, all that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, just looking at numbers, and I'm bringing it back to sports. I had a friend who was really, and this is going to sound insane because this isn't actually about sports, but he did not understand the appeal of Sean Connery as James Bond. But he was also a big basketball fan. So I'm just like, think about it. Sean Connery's a bit like Michael Jordan, and Sean Connery's playing at like a better, at a better, like an elevated game compared to everybody else in the 60s. But you're looking at it from a modern perspective, and like if it's he playing the same game that say like Daniel Craig. I mean, Daniel Craig wasn't Bond at the time, but we'll just go with that because that's very different. Sean Connery's Bond playing at the same game as Daniel Craig. No, it's not. It's like would Michael Jordan be that amazing basketball player and sink all those baskets? Like he was in the 80s, blow people's mind whenever he played. Like he did in the 80s. In today's game, where people have like risen to that level, and so it's kind of the same thing. Like you cannot take stats, you cannot understand these things with just in that abstract context, because there is a real world context to all of this stuff. So you can't compare Daniel Craig to Sean Connery or Michael Jordan to LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, you need to, it's fine to use the stat as a premise, but then you need to explain how, you're connecting that premise to your conclusion. And then to go back to Skelmp's point, it's almost always more complicated than this is just math. Particularly unimpressive to say this is just math in a case like this caller, though, who literally doesn't know what the numbers are, right? Like that, so it's like seems to be under the vague impression that if nothing changes, people will get 0% of their protected Social Security benefits, which is, I think we'll go with that as a transition back to restarted the video. The other one I was thinking about was, I think Sean Connery was absolutely the best Bond, but
I'm with you there, but my friend was not a fan, so
now that he's 90, I don't think that he should have to make more James Bond movies.
Well, he's also dead.
Well, especially now that he's dead. That would just be unreasonable.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever, 5 years ago, right? 85, right? He was still alive. He, it would be really unreasonable to ask him to continue to do that then. So that's the other possible transition back to talking about retirement. But in any case, let's go back.
Does a 40-year-old retire at full retirement benefits? If I'm 40 today, how old do I have to be to fully retire?
Dude,
how old? How old?
This ain't a quiz, dude.
No,
I want to talk about solutions for the future.
Well, you don't know what the problem is.
There are ways we can actually.
You don't even know what the problem is. You don't know what the full retirement age is for a 40-year-old.
Work for people in the future.
How do you know that the math's not going to work if you don't know the numbers that Sam is referencing?
Look at the fucking tables. Look at the trust fund. It's clear the numbers don't work.
It's good you brought up the trust fund.
Yes, the trust fund is going to be at 0%. But the way the program works, 80% of benefits are going to be paid. What age, who has looked at the trust fund and all the tables, what age is full retirement for a 40-year-old today?
I'm looking at the future. I'm looking at solutions for the future. And
you know how you answer that question, Eamon? Let me help you out. I don't know,
Sam. Get out of the way and allow us to build the technology.
I don't even know what the full retirement age is. Okay, so let's move on to your next thing. It's 67. When was it raised, Eamon? Why is it that as a 56-year-old... When?
I think it was 1980 something.
Yeah, 1981. And what did the government do?
What do you mean?
What did the government do in 1981? There was a big reform to Social Security. What did they do then?
Dude, what, you want me to read the fucking paper for you?
No, I know the answer. I know the answer.
I'm talking about the future, dude. I'm talking about the future.
Oh, the future. All right, dude. Listen. So, dude, let's talk about the other issue.
I'm talking about technology, man.
Yeah, no, I know you're talking about technology. Yeah. Well, you know what?
I want
you should develop a machine.
To have the kind of lives that they deserve.
You should develop a machine that can read the Social Security Trust Fund report to you. That's the first thing you should do with the future with your technology.
No, I should build machines that help reduce medical costs so this could all be affordable for everybody.
Great.
This is the problem. You're focused on the numbers instead of the actual thing that needs to be fixed.
Wait, didn't you start this by telling me it was about math?
Yeah.
Yeah, the math for this won't work out. We have to focus on other ways. People my age and younger have to expect we're not going to have the same Social Security benefits.
You're going to have 80%
for our future.
Listen,
dude, you keep talking like
Now, let's go on to your next issue. The government did not expect. Now you're going back in the past, which you had a problem with me talking about 1981 when this deal where they expected exactly everything you're talking about. In fact, they expected this before then. You can see that the Social Security was tweaked all along the way. But in 1981, we were aware of the baby boom. We were aware of things like there's going to be X number of workers and there's going to be
collect a lot of money. It was a beautiful thing in that time until things flipped the other way.
Okay, now flip the other way. Your big contribution to this is that there is a different ratio of workers to retirees. Is that correct?
Yeah.
When was the biggest change in that ratio? Because right now...
What does it matter when? I know what it is now. I don't know what it was.
What is it now?
3. 3 to 1.
3 to 1. And what's it projected to be in terms of workers to retirees by 2050?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you imagine it's going to be a problem, right?
It's already too low.
Okay, it's already too low. What was it when Social Security started?
40.
42, I think it was.
Dude, why are you quizzing me on fucking numbers, man?
Because you keep talking about math. What was the biggest change? Do you remember what happened in 1950?
All this negativity, like, hey, let's tax more. Let's tax more. Let's talk about
when I talk about tax more,
lifestyle changes.
When I talk about,
I want people to live the lives that they deserve in old age, and here you are. Just focus on stupid shit.
Wait, you said that you have a company, a medical device company?
No, okay, no. Listen, I'm not care. I don't care about your podcast. I let you on. I let you on a much bigger podcast.
Talk about politics because
18 to 1
because of this
in 1950.
You focus on the negativity and you don't focus on solutions for the future. Okay, that's what I'm trying to talk.
Oh, you want solutions for the future? Raise the cap.
Yes, I listened to you talk about raising the cap. Yeah. So
okay, you want to calm down for a second. Hold on. Hey, buddy, listen. I invited you on here to talk about your video that you posted.
Yeah.
It's very jump cutty. I'm giving you the opportunity to do it now, like in real time. From 1950 to 1965, we had the biggest change in the ratio of worker to retiree that we have ever experienced. And that went from 18 to 1 in 1950, because from 1936 to 1950, it also diminished greatly, but that big part of that was it was the beginning of the program. 18 to 1 in 1950, 4 to 1 in 1965. And do you know what happened to Social Security in 1965?
Shit you talked about.
Do you know what happened in 1965? Do you know what happened in 1965?
Go ahead.
To Social Security? Nothing. Now, why is that? I'm going to explain something to you. It's called increase in productivity. As each worker becomes more productive and creates more activity in terms of increases the GDP, more money goes into the coffers of Social Security to pay for current retirees. So the reason why Social Security has not collapsed, even though there has been I don't even know how to express it in like multiples of a diminishment in that ratio between workers and retirees, much larger than we are going to experience in the next 50 or 60 years, is because of increases in productivity, which is why even if we do nothing,
you're not even anticipating
80%,
automation. You're not even anticipating automation. There will be no workers eventually. Do you understand that? Like, that's the problem with all this like future prediction shit. It can go one way, it can go another way.
There's going to
I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, their automation, there's going to be no workers. Then I'm really confused about how this fits with the rest of this guy's stuff.
Yeah, I love the fact that he's bringing this up. Like this is like this new revelation that he's had. It actually does get funnier as to what some of his examples are, but I'm not gonna spoil that. But like this is not a new discussion, because like back in the 60s, when the Jetsons came out, they were talking about like how, in the future we're only going to work a couple hours a day, and look, I mean, George Jetson can afford to be a single income household you know, with by pushing that one button for like 2 hours
Yeah.
a day. You know,
Yeah.
he's got 2 kids, a dog, a robot maid, an alien
Yeah.
pet too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't think I'm you know, I feel confident in the world of the Jetsons. You know, Social Security is well funded. You know, it seems like that kind of world. Certainly, you know, certainly George seems to be extremely productive with his hour a week of, you know, pressing the button at Space's rocket and lightly, you know, sitting back.
The
Yeah.
far future of, what was it, 1997?
Something like that. Yeah, we got robbed. But this is also like as easy as it is to get lost. And yeah, I saw in the chat, this guy sounds like a bunch of ill-fitting Republican talking points thrown in a blender. I would say he sounds like 3 Republican talking points in a trench coat, right? You know, like standing on top of each other. But
With a fake ID trying to buy beer.
exactly.
I mean, is this like the typical Patrick Bet David's viewer? I mean, I'm not sure. I don't want to disparage.
I mean, I've violated the terms of the break here, but like the only time, you know, I know almost nothing about Patrick Bet David, right? The only time that I've ever seen anybody on a show was like, was it like the end of last year when Anna went on, and in part of what we played on the show from that, he was doing the human shields defense for bombing civilians in Gaza. And she said, okay, well, if somebody like grabbed your mom and, you know, and like was using her as like a literal human shield in a hostage situation, would you be okay with shooting the person through her? And he said, well, that's not what we're talking about. So like, I've got to say, based on that, I'm kind of deeply unimpressed by this person. And, you know,
he's like a rich person who bought himself a podcast. It's in a bank vault where everybody, Sam Cedar's been on there, which is an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I might actually do that at some point if they're talking about stuff like this. But yeah, it's really okay. As hard as this is to remember, when this guy, like in his original video and in several of his statements during the MR call, he said that the whole thing is that if you look at the numbers, you know, it's just about math, that the numbers just don't add up. And now he's saying, well, how can you make predictions about the future? It hasn't happened yet. Like, which is it, right? Like, if you can't make predictions about the future, then it's clearly not just about the math, because like you don't know what the inputs will be in the future, because for all we know in the future, you know, all of the jobs will be had by robots and there will be no workers anymore, which also, by the way, if you assume that all the jobs will be done by robots in the future and there will be no workers anymore, then I mean, the funding of Social Security is the least of your problems, man. I mean, I just wouldn't even worry about it in that, you know, scenario, because either, you know, one of two things has basically happened at that point. Either we've got fully automated luxury communism, right? We're living in the Star Trek society where everything's been automated away, but we all get to equally share in the proceeds of the automated production system, or else, you know, I don't know, probably like most of us are just being allowed to starve to death, whether we're over 67, you know, or not. So either way, right? Like either way, I don't really know. It's really a mystery to me how this point about how all the robots will be taking all the jobs in the future is supposed to interact with the stuff about Social Security.
Just wait.
There'll be no workers.
I'm thinking about a way for this to work for everybody.
Hey, you know, dude, we've been hearing about automation.
People's lifestyle.
We've been hearing about automation taking away workers' jobs for, I don't know,
Ever.
15, 20 years.
No
and
more.
More. And
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
Are you-
There we go.
Oh, right.
All right,
The
well, dude.
glorified autocorrect. I mean,
All right, dude, listen,
that's going to change everything, bro.
Listen, I know that it's impossible to predict the future 20 years out by looking at actuarial tables and assessing what the
No
trust
one
fund is.
predicted COVID.
But
And guess what? How it changed the solvency of Social Security, which I don't even want to talk about because it's kind of morbid.
Yeah,
But
it helped.
there are things that will happen in the future that we won't know. I want to.
But you're talking to me
think about a
about
way for the
automation and how
that it can actually work for people
ChatGPT is going to make there be no workers.
Jobs are automated away. There are no people to tax.
Dude,
You see the problem
why
there?
is it that my looking into the future on all of these math
You brought it up.
questions is
Talked about
sort of
efficiency human beings.
fantastical,
We're able to.
but you saying that
You
we're
just
going to
talked
be
about the
automated
efficiency
out of
human
workers
dude. What if
is
the human workers don't
the
exist
basis
at all?
of your argument.
You just made the case, dude. Come on.
Now listen, here's the bottom line.
This is why it's like the focus on. I don't know. Technology is the only way to ensure the lifestyle that our retirees deserve.
You know what?
Deserve it.
I am perfectly fine with you going out and inventing whatever machine you want to invent. In the meantime, we are taking in 5 to 7% less in national income via Social Security taxes because of wealth disparity in this country. And if we raise the cap on who has to pay Social Security taxes, the trust fund will insolvency in 3033 or whether it's 3034, 3032 is irrelevant. We will.
Do you know why the cap exists?
I suspect it's because wealthy people didn't want to pay above that level.
No. It's because the idea was it's a social program to help retirees that you pay into with the expectation that you pull out. If there's a cap on how much you can pull out, there should be a cap on how much you put in. That's the whole point. You want to change it into a wealth redistribution program? Convince congressmen to do that. Go ahead.
I will try to do that. That's what I'm trying to do.
Happen. So I'm thinking.
Well, what is the idiot part of? I'm just curious. Why am I a fucking idiot for understanding that and wanting to pressure politicians to remove the cap so that we can keep at least 30% out of poverty and then another 30% from living right on the edge of poverty and all the sort of like downstream implications of that in terms of other people? Why is that idiotic? As opposed to you wanting to invent a machine that's going to make it easier for you.
You're expecting politicians to reform something.
Okay. I'm just going to put aside the question of whether ChatGPT means there'll be no workers in the future.
It's certainly going to take away my job.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I have. Yeah, I don't know. It's got the AI art things. Have to start giving. You got to stop giving everybody 3 extra fingers. That's the first bar. But yeah, look, I mean, putting that aside, when he said, "Oh, do you even know why there's a cap on like how much anybody could pay into Social Security?" Like, you would think just from the tone of the question that the answer would be, "Oh, you fool, you idiot, you just do not understand that if we got rid of that cap, some sort of disastrous thing would follow from that. That you just haven't thought it through. You don't know how bad it would be if we did it, because here's the thing that would happen if we, like this pragmatic bad consequence that would happen if we lifted the cap." And then he just didn't do that at all, right? Like he was just like, "Well, it seems unfair to me that people should have to pay in, like that it should just be, that your contribution should continue to increase as your income goes up, because there's only so much you can get out of it." It's like, oh well, wait, that was it, right? That's like so you would find it unfair. I mean, it's like, all right, well, if we're not talking about some like technical reason why you can't do it, it's just that it would like strike you as unfair, then it's like, all right, well, now we're having that's nice, right? So it's like now we're just having an argument about what seems fair. And if, according to you, doing nothing will mean that retiring seniors will be shafted, right? That they'll get nothing, right? Like that's the, wrong premise, but whatever, that's his premise. Then it's like, well, if that's true, right? That's not just they'll get 80%, but they'll get nothing. Man, that seems pretty unfair, right? Like they, even just in like sort of rules of the game fairness in that sense, right? Like never mind any, better sense of fairness, like people who paid in their entire lives to the system aren't gonna get its benefits according to him. That seems pretty unfair. I mean, are we just supposed to take it as a given that that's less unfair than making high earners like pay a higher percentage into the system?
I was so hoping that he was going to say that if they didn't do it, that monkeys were going to take over the world and we'd have Planet of the Apes. Because that was the level of buildup he gave it.
Oh, do you even know why? Are you serious? You're talking about Social Security. You don't even know. You don't even know about the sentient apes that we've got in the Social Security lockbox. You just want to open it up and like let them like run rampant over the earth. Like, do you even watch those movies?
You damn dirty apes. You bastards, you did it.
You lifted the Social Security cap and all the apes got out, right? Yeah, no, you're right. That is the level of buildup, that like it was going to be some apocalyptic consequence that was going to come out if we lifted the Social Security cap. And now all he's saying is like, no, it seems unfair to him. It's like, okay. I mean, so it's, so to you, it seems, more unfair than that people who earn lots of money have to pay more of it in Social Security taxes than they do right now, than that people who paid into Social Security their entire lives, don't get the full benefits. I don't know. I have the opposite intuition. I don't like, I certainly, as I think Sam is very correctly saying here, I don't see where the fucking idiocy comes in.
No, I think Marx, kind of nailed it with like, this is getting some of that surplus labor value back to the people.
Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, like, and even under, yeah, that you can't, this is less of what you produce that you're keeping in the present tense, but, then you will yourself one day be retired and you will get the benefits of it, is the whole premise. I mean, in the critique of the Gotha program, Marx says, we shouldn't say people get the full value of their labor because, even under socialism, we need like pensions for retirees and, all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, this is just such a letdown, right? This is that all that's all that there is on the other end is just, well, it seems unfair to the rich people to me that they would have to pay more in Social Security taxes. And it just seems like, okay, well, done to me, right? Like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, it's a really not a good argument.
Like they did in 1981.
Like they did in 1981. It wasn't designed to be a wealth redistribution program. It was never that. You're asking them to change it into something, and you got to get both sides of the political aisle to do that. Do you think that's going to actually work?
Do you know how many people? Problem with your thinking. You know how many people make money?
All just talk.
If you're worried about the wealth redistribution, let's just do it. We'll do it. We'll put in a donut.
I don't mind it.
How's that?
I don't mind it, but I don't think you can get it to happen. Because the way our government works, you can yell, you can complain, you can have your show and complain about all this stuff.
But wait a second.
I'm talking about actual reality here.
Okay,
reality here.
I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to tell us the actual reality of your solution to this. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So anyone under 40 should expect we're not going to get Social Security the same way our parents and grandparents have.
Pause it. Hold on. I'm going to restart the clock. I'm going to restart the clock.
Come on, bro.
Because the premise in what you're saying, again, 80% if you want to remind people, if you want to tell people information, not about your plan to fix this, but if you want to tell them about the situation now, you need to be accurate on my program. On your Twitter feed, you can say whatever you want, but you got to say, if government does nothing right now and you're 40 years old, you can expect only 80% of your Social Security benefits. All right, I'll reset the clock for you. Go ahead.
Well, I said under 40, so that applies to you.
Under 40, too, if you're of working age, whatever.
Okay. So saying all that, so anyone under 40 should be planning that you're not going to get as much. How about that? Is that cool?
Sure.
All right. 2, I think the government has to get out of the way when it comes to technological innovation, especially in the medical field. Like, the distribution of how much the government pays in Medicare and all that stuff. So that is way more expensive than it needs to be. And a lot of it is driven by regulation and big corporations who are probably in bed with government. So get out of the way so we can reduce the cost there. Also, technology to reduce the cost of housing and food production so that people can actually live good retired lives. And that, if we can do that through technology, then the actual dollar figure won't matter so much because everyone will be able to afford it.
How do you do that?
That's the argument.
Okay.
Well, you did that in a minute. You did that in a minute. And I think that's pretty compelling. Government get out of the way so that medical costs go down. Of course, if people will live longer there, but the technological advances that you are talking about are going to make everything better. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could argue with that.
This whole thing about government getting out of the way of medical advances is, one, very strange given the original topic, because better medicine would do nothing to solve the problem he's talking about with Social Security. In fact, I think, given his own argument, it would make it worse, right? Because he said the whole problem with Social Security, remember, he said at the beginning, is that when Congress passed Social Security, they didn't know people would be living this long.
Yeah, they didn't have actuarial tables, which we've had since the 17th century, by the way.
Yeah. So it says, so it doesn't work because people are living so long, right? That's the reason, or one of the reasons he gave why Social Security is a problem now. It's like, well, all right, well, if the medical advances make people live even longer, not only have you not done anything that he just said that would help with the Social Security problem that he identifies, but by his own lights, that would make that problem worse, because now people are going to be living even longer. And, and then where their Social Security benefits for all these years going to come from. But then the other thing is the premise that government needs to get out of the way of medical innovation. It's like, my brother, where do you think medical innovation comes from? This is just by the numbers, a medical innovation is mostly driven by state investment. There are definitely things that the private sector does in terms of sort of adapting things, and marketing them, obviously. Right. Actual, certainly if you look at pharmaceuticals, this is stuff that, what's her name? Mariana Mazzucato, I think, the entrepreneurial state, that woman, she talks about, or I think I first ran into it in the Lee Phillips and Mikhail Rozworski, the People's Republic of Walmart, that if you talk about pharmaceuticals, a lot of pharmaceutical patents are basically some already existing drug being tweaked very, in some completely trivial way, essentially, so that a drug company could put their brand on it and patent that, right, and sell that. But if you're talking about genuinely new drugs, right, it's NMEs, new molecular organisms, a absolutely absurdly big majority of those are developed in labs that get government funding, right? That this is the, NIH, et cetera, right? This is, so this idea, in fact, in fact, a big part of the reason why so many medical innovations happen in the United States is precisely that that the U.S. funnels, one might say. Sorry, call back. So much money into things like the NIH. It's like, yeah, I don't know why. Like, it sounds like he thinks, yeah, if like we just need to deregulate our way to having more medical innovations, which I just don't think is reality in terms of where they come from, like how much medical research happens because of funding from the public sector anyway, right? And two, it's like, yeah, okay, sure, fine, assume that it's true, right? That like we could like libertarianism our way to having more medical innovation, and that people would then live longer. Great. So now, according to you, you have just exacerbated the problem that you started out by identifying, that people are living longer and hence Social Security doesn't work.
No, exactly. And like, it's amazing because like we've actually seen there's some fiction TV shows that actually explain better than a lot of things how these medical things work. Like if you watched The Blacklist, that there was somebody who had like this rare disease that nobody would fund because only like 3 people in the world have this disease. And so nobody would fund research into it because there wasn't enough demand. So he was going around trying to like infect a bunch of people with it. It was weird sci-fi kind of concept, but like,
that's fun though.
No, it's a great kind of exercise to seeing how like the world actually works in a way like that. But I mean, like if he's watched that, then he'd at least understand a little bit more, because they actually do a really good job explaining how medical things get funded, and part of it is supply and demand too. It's not just like, this benevolent corporation is going to magically eradicate this disease that like 6 people have over in in the world. No, they're not going to invest in that.
Right. Yeah, in fact, it's a huge problem for antibiotics, like that's because it's just not that profitable. Also, I had in the chat, Nuri Yank says, why are we reviewing Seder dunking on random caller? Video was the right length, seemed like an interesting topic. If you think that, and it's like, look, I think that there's stuff that I agree with Sam on. There's stuff I disagree with him on. The same person in the chat mentioned Danny Bessner, arguing with him on Ukraine. I'm probably closer to Danny on that one, than Sam. But it's like, one, I actually do genuinely think whatever you can say good or bad about the guy, that like I don't see him turning down a lot of opportunities to have conversations with people who disagree with him. I've never seen that. Look, if you've got if you want to say the 3 Republican talking points in a trench coat aren't given the best case, identify the person who would do a better job with this. Make sure they're available to do it. And look, I could send the man a DM. I'm happy to set up that person talking to Sam in the future, and then we'll review that, right? I've done that before, right? Like I think that this idea that it's like, oh, this is just like they're just letting the dunce in. It's like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the phone lines are open. Anybody can call in.
Yeah, and he also was invited because he was called Sam a fucking idiot. So, which I really do appreciate that Sam, does actually prioritize certain callers. Like
that will probably get you to the head of the list, the combination of fucking idiot in this particular topic. But let's continue.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I think we would agree on 60% of things, and on the 40% we disagree.
You know what? I was being facetious. It's just that I didn't think you really said anything. I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't want you to feel like,
look,
I mean, I just don't know how
deserves better businessmen, and I'm going to give it to them.
All right. Well, I wish
you can talk all you want.
You are. I hope
if you hate
that
politics
you are,
and you don't like how negative it is, listen to the Table Moments podcast. We don't talk politics. Typically, that slipped out. My bad.
Okay,
That's a good pitch
call.
to people
Thank
turning into a dry political podcast. They definitely will do that, sir.
I appreciate the call. There it is, folks. I hope that as a business person, he is better than he is in sort of understanding broad policy questions.
God forbid anyone considers him, like, say, a fucking idiot or something like that.
That's right. I mean, that was, but understand and I don't even know if he's aware that's what he's doing, but that whole libertarian business mindset, which is that, like, I'm gonna make an assertion about how things are going to get bad. I'm going to then depoliticize you by telling you that politics are stupid to talk about, to expect politicians to help you out is folly, and it's a waste of your time, which of course is completely depoliticizing. Is it going to be a struggle to get politicians to raise the cap and fund Social Security properly? Of course. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago, is it a struggle to keep Social Security politicians, Democrats and Republicans, mostly all Republicans, some Democrats, from cutting Social Security benefits, I would have said that is going to be very hard. But that's where we are today. And so the idea that these libertarian brainiacs, part of either what their agenda is or what they're acting upon is this sense of depoliticization, because they want the rest of you to feel like there is no point in demanding stuff from politicians or from government. Allow really wealthy business people to provide for you, because that's in their interest.
It's in his interest. Didn't he say that's what his line of work is?
Apparently,
medical technology.
Yeah,
I mean, just like, yeah.
Medical technology is going to save us.
I mean, we're not in the business of Social Security. We're not making money off of Social Security and making these arguments. You can make your judgment about what that guy's motives might be.
But it is also amazing too, dude. If you're gonna, and it's not like you didn't have a 2 days to know this. Like, go back and read the report. Be able to answer the two basic questions that your whole thing was premised on. One, that there's going to be no money in Social Security. You shouldn't need me to tell you what the Social Security Trust report says. Trustees report says 80% benefits. And you should know, if you're talking to 40-year-olds, what the retirement age is for 40-year-olds, because it's different than it is for me. Is in 1981, they made a deal that would raise the retirement age starting, I think it was in 2000, by a couple of months every year. And so by the time a 40-year-old retires, it's going to be 67 for full retirement. They've already raised the age.
Yeah. That was actually that was actually more fun than I thought it was going to be. That's
that was a good one.
Yeah, because it's like, look, I think it's important, and and as I said, I thought that the topic would be a refreshing change, but yeah, Social Security, it's a little dry. So but the caller was so much fun that that I ended up enjoying that a lot anyway.
Yeah, I love the argument about businessmen. We need better businessmen, and businessmen should lead this country and that kind of stuff. Because I remember that back in 2000, and I actually somebody told me that because I liked the actor Fred Thompson, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll vote for him in the primary. I don't know, because I didn't know anything about politics back then, really. And so I did the research, because they said that there's never been a businessman president before, and I'm like, okay, let me look this up. Oh, Herbert Hoover. Gee, nothing bad happened while he was president. No, I mean, like,
yeah, that premise. What year was that, Fred Thompson?
That was 2000.
2000. Okay, yeah. That premise was all over the place in that era. I mean, this was like that was like half of what like the Ross Perot campaigns were about. That's like, oh, if we just have the common sense of a businessman, running things, then then everything will be good. And yeah, this is like it's its own version of like technocratic liberal premise that that you just need the like really smart experts to be in charge of everything, and everything will work out fine. But it's like kind of a particularly debased version of it, and it's like one that like really shows most dramatically what's wrong with it, which is like, okay, so do we all have the same interests? Right? Like that this is it's just a question of like, we all want all the same stuff. So it's just a question of who are the smartest, most capable people to deliver it from, as opposed to the things that will help. For example, wealthy businessmen will not actually help ordinary people, and vice versa often, right? Like, which, and by the way, I do want to say, apophatic, affidong. You gotta have fewer syllables in these names if I'm going to read off the chats. So in the chats, sorry, this says, how do you know he is rich? He could just be delusional. Yeah, totally. Right. Like, I don't necessarily think that caller is rich. I don't know if
it's probably currently embarrassed to a rich person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that, I don't remember if Emma said he was rich or not, but like, regardless, it's, I think she said it just like it was in his interests, but like, whatever, like it's, whether they claimed it or not, I certainly didn't. I think that I don't think that he's necessarily rich. I actually, if I had to guess, right, everything about that guy's vibe tells me that he is a starry-eyed hustler who watches a lot of you videos on YouTube about how to start your own business. And these were all uncharitable, and this is just vibes based. I have no way of knowing, but I would guess that the medical technology stuff is still largely aspirational at this point in his life. And the business that he's actually started is the podcast that he's desperately trying to promote at the end of the call. So yeah, I don't, I think that in fact, that's kind of the typical, like, obviously you do have lots of libertarian billionaires. Those exist too, whichever Koch brother is still alive. I never remember. I think David.
I don't know.
David? Hey, well, one of them is dead. One of them's alive. Whichever one of those guys is still alive, your Peter Thiel, even if he's sort of drifted in a different direction, at least he was classically very libertarian. You do have a fair amount of libertarian billionaires, which is part of why the libertarian ecosystem has so many grants and think tanks and and all that stuff. But look, your average rank and file libertarian, including your average libertarian podcaster, is not that, right? Like, there are people who in their heads, they will one day be rich. But and they cannot, it's very important that nobody hypothetically tax them in the future. But it's not really a live issue in their lives right now.
I just wonder, like, are you still a libertarian on your deathbed?
Yeah. Even though I don't have anything to pass on to my descendants, if I did, I'd be very opposed to taxing it now. Yeah, no, it's, you get that's I suppose that's when the purity of your libertarianism, really comes out.
Yeah, you get visited by the ghost of the dead Koch brother, Ayn Rand, and maybe one other libertarian.
Yeah. Oh my God. I would actually, I'd watch that version of the Christmas Carol. That sounds fun. I actually watched back in December, I actually watched the Muppet Christmas Carol for the for the first time since it was in the theater. And it holds up well. I like making they made the Marleys was a really good decision, that the Statler and Waldorf were it as the Marleys.
Yeah, I'm just glad it wasn't like Bob Marley, which they would have done too.
Yeah, very different decision. Yeah, fair enough.
Or at least have Bob Marley show up like a puppet Bob Marley, and all of a sudden Statler and Waldorf show up, and it's like, oh, it's the wrong Marley.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. All right. So some announcements before we call it a night. Just because this is coming up in exactly 1 week. If anybody is watching who is in Detroit or mid-Michigan, and I was widely chided when I announced this before for using the phrase mid-Michigan in a way that suggested it included Detroit, which is, of course, inaccurate. Detroit is southeastern Michigan. Where I grew up is actually mid-Michigan, so I tend to use the phrase mid-Michigan just sort of informally to mean anything that's not that bad a drive from where I grew up, which is inaccurate. But in any case, if you live in any of those places, if you live not that bad a drive from Detroit, next Thursday at Wayne State University, the old main building, room 103 at 6 p.m. So this is Thursday, March 21st. I'm going to be giving a talk that's co-sponsored by Metro Detroit DSA and Wayne State YDSA called Debunking Israel, the Many Bad Arguments Made by Israel's Apologists in the West. So do come check that out. I don't really know if I'm actually kind of hoping that any student Zionists they might have at Wayne State, come out and and make it an interesting Q&A. But I'm kind of not counting on it, because in my experience, that kind of thing doesn't usually happen. But honestly, it'd be more fun if it does. So I want it to. But in any case, that's coming up next Thursday for those of you who are in mid-ish Michigan. And meanwhile, as far as what's going on this channel, there will not, of course, be a debate breakdown next Thursday, because I am going to be giving that talk in Detroit when we normally have the breakdown. But we are going to do a bonus breakdown tomorrow. Matt Whalen is going to be here, and he and I are going to watch a video entitled Ben Shapiro versus the University of Wisconsin, which I really enjoy as a title, because it sort of suggests that the entire university came together to debate Ben Shapiro. Just like I'm just kind of imagining this giant line where there are, there's there are professors and students and cafeteria workers, and it's like everybody's waiting their turn to do it. But in any case, that one I suspect will break the genocide break, because I think it will come up. But in any case, we're going to be watching that usual time, 8 Eastern tomorrow. So a little bonus breakdown. And then, of course, on Sunday, got the usual philosophy stream. And then on Monday, we have Matt McManus, who's going to come on to talk about his Jacobin article about Thomas Sowell, since in his role as a literary political sin eater, he's he read Thomas Sowell's book, Social Justice Fallacies, Social Justice Follies, so the rest of us don't have to. So in any case, that should be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that on Monday. And I think we should probably cut it there for tonight. So thank you, Andy, for coming on at an unusual time. Anything to plug before we go?
Yeah, if you are in the Northampton area, I will be at Progression Brewery with my DSA. I don't remember what we're discussing tomorrow night, but I'll be there. It'll be a fun discussion. It's just the DSA group's discussion. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just going to be there. But come say hi. Anyways, if you can, and meet the local DSA.
Yeah. Nice. And I'm getting actually. Yes, a couple people in the chat are asking when we're going to do another film discussion. It has been a little while. That's actually true. So I should, I should hit up Jason and Teray about when to do one of those. There's also been some talk about
Gene's get Dune.
Yes, Gene would obviously be very down to. I mean, I just need to watch it.
His Facebook is literally just Dune memes.
I have noticed this. Yes. Yeah, if I can get it together and actually go out to the theater and watch Dune soon, then perhaps we'll bring on Gene and do a Dune one. But in any case, yes. Or we could, or as has been suggested, chat, we could, completely throw the genocide brake to the wind and do the zone of interest. Fair enough. Well, on that note, I will see people here tomorrow night and all those other times. Come see me if you're in Detroit next Thursday. Go to Andy's DSA chapters thing if you're in his neck of the woods.
Progression Brewery.